Hello everyone, Ceri the Crafter here, that's C-E-R-I the Crafter, and I'm here with another colour combination request really. It's kind of a request. My friend Paula in the Netherlands, sorry if I pronounce that wrong, I'm just hideous with names, had one of her subscribers request using Dyke Brown and Winsor & Newton Opera Rose Pink. I don't have Opera Rose Pink anymore because I gave it to a friend of mine because it was just too fluoro for me. So I pulled out some pinks, and I know I can make my own pink as I go along. And a couple of others I pulled out of these Extreme Sheens metallics, vintage brass and copper. I thought those might work well. Anyway, so I thought, right, let's get on and have another go. If you're new to watching this sort of video, I have created a playlist for these because I thought it was going to be a one-off, and then more and more people love watching it done. I'm getting more and more requests for different and sometimes bizarre colour combinations, but I'm enjoying doing them. So yes, I made my own playlist for them. So I pulled out a bit of scrapbook card, paper, pad, whatever you should call it. This is obviously Christmas themed. Would I use this design? For me, possibly not. I could probably make a journal cover if I cut that down. I could probably make tags, but that's not really my style. I don't mind keeping the wood as the background if I don't get it all painty. So let's just get on with this, shall we? Because I'm interested to see which direction I actually take this in, because if anything's going to go dark, it's going to be this colour. However, saying that, if I look at brown, okay, brown is made up of many other colours and will enhance and support many other colours. Like there's always going to be a bit of green in here. There's going to be all the earthy tones in here. So that's quite good. And when it comes to pinks, of course, because of the colour of the pink, we can use things like peony colours. We can use like crimson colours. We could even use lilacs and lavenders and purples if I wanted to. If I was to look at the colour wheel, which you know I use a colour wheel quite often, if we're looking round about here and it's quite a bit darker than here, it's saying that's the complementary, or that's the contrast to it. So we could even go with teals or blues, and as you can see it's got purples in it. The pinks would sit around here, which sit quite nicely within green and teal and turquoise as well. So I do have quite a bit to play with, which I'm kind of excited but kind of nervous all at the same time, because I'm not overly sure how this is going to turn out. But then that's another reason I like doing these, because to be honest with you, it challenges me to think outside of my normal colour scheme. So, right, as with everything, I pulled a few stencils out over there, variety of different styles. Let's get something down, shall we? Right, now, I would normally go in with the colours that I've got to start with. However, I think that was just going to make this look black. And I'm not sure about putting a pink into the background. So I'm going to go kind of neutral, kind of warmish, just kind of. Let's see, where's my terracotta? I think I'm going to put a bit of terracotta down here. Just to start covering up this. And I know that this Arteza paint isn't opaque, so there's no problems there whatsoever. It will help me cover this. When I'm repurposing 12 by 12 designs, depending on the design, sometimes I really do need to cover up the entire background, and other times I don't. Like for me, I can't have Christmas showing through on this design because I don't know when it's actually going to be used, utilized, shown, whatever. So I've got a bit of that on there. I'm thinking I want to add something. Let's see, what's that? That's yellow ochre. Now, I know that this has got a bit of a punch to it, but all saying that, I think it'll work. As you know, with me, I go very much by instinct. I do use my colour wheel, as you've seen, well, as you've just noticed, because I've just done it now. I use that sometimes to help me confirm what I'm thinking. So as with all of my videos, I try to do them in real time. If for any reason you think the video is going too long, by all means just fast forward it, guys. I mean, that's the joy of it being a video and not a live. It means that you choose when to watch it. I mean, I watch a lot of YouTubes because I don't really watch TV, to be honest with you. TV is not something that I sit in front of very often. Let's see if I can get another colour into that. I'm thinking of warming it up slightly with something. What's that? Okay, that's just a nondescript bottle of different paints emptied into it. Let's do some of that. Yeah, because I watch quite a few videos and I like to watch lives, and because I can't always watch lives when they're live, funny that, I tend to actually mix this with some yellow. Is that sunflower? It is sunflower. I tend to watch lives on playback, or I watch them after the event has happened, because sometimes that's just what I can do with my schedule, because I do have a bit of a crazy schedule sometimes. Well, in fact, a bit of a crazy schedule most times. So I like to watch things back, but just like any of you, I can pause it. I can go make a cup of tea, I can have lunch, I can have it playing in the background. So where I try to limit the length of my videos is purely if I can stay at about 1 hour maximum. And sometimes I go over that, as you know. I mean, there's a few out there that are like 1 hour, 20 minutes, and I don't know there's any much more than that. But that's purely for my upload time and my editing, because my process is I will make a video and I will watch the entire video and edit it as I go. And as I'm editing, I will take out anything that's boring, anything that I may have said that's potentially controversial or inappropriate, which there's not a lot of those, I can tell you. I'm not one of those people, but I do like to make sure that I've made it as viewer friendly as possible. And as I said, if there's anything that's boring, it gets taken out. I try to crop where necessary, but still give you a journey. Okay, liking that. Now I've got a little bit of paint on here now. Normally, as you've heard me say before, I would utilise that paint on maybe a postcard background, maybe on an ATC, something along those lines. Not when I'm filming, because what I've found is when I am editing videos, the first thing I cut out is utilising the spare paint. So if I'm coming to the end of a video, by the way, this is just a really damp cloth, it's stained because it's full of paint, and it does occasionally go into the laundry. I've got 2 of them, and it's my way of not using too many wet wipes. Still use them occasionally when appropriate. So right, I've got that on the go. I like it. We're going in the right direction. Think I want to add a bit of lightness now to pull that forward. I've got, where is it? Camel. It's not a million miles from my favourite colour, which is buttermilk. Okay, so this one wish I had a bigger pot of that, to be honest. So I'm just going to put a few bits of this into the background again. All about layers with me, as you know, all about layers. So I hope you're all doing fairly well out there. It's scarily close to the holiday season now. I'm like, oh good grief, is that here again? I've struggled to believe that a year has gone by. I'm just like, now I know that we've been stuck in COVID for a while, and now we're all sort of getting back to not normal. It's never going to be what it was, but we're getting to a new sort of normal. I think that's the way I want to word it. However, we've all had to adapt to change. Some of us, like myself, have had to kind of reinvent our lives, which is fine. That's absolutely perfect. If that's what the powers that be decided was going to happen to my life, then that's what happened to my life. Okay, let's just have a bit of a clean up over here. But life seems to have got crazy busy again, and all of a sudden another 12 months has gone by. I'm like, I really, really don't understand where it all went. So I don't know why I bother cleaning this mat. It's never going to be clean again. So right, I like what I've got down there. Now I need to keep remembering all of the time the colours that are going to be used. Now, Dyke Brown is probably for me as close to black as brown can get. So that has to be used sparingly, and on the page it needs to not, it's going to dominate wherever it goes, it's going to dominate. So I'm going to save that for a little later on. Now I do have the pinks that I pulled out now. The pink that was requested, that Paolo had requested, was opera pink, which for me is almost fluorescent pink. Now looking at these, oops, I dropped it. I don't mind, but I think this one is the wrong pink. What is this? I can never see names on these bottles. It just says matte. Okay, I know it's matte. Oh, antique pink. I think that's not the right colour. It doesn't feel right. Either of these two will do. Is that a chalk? No, it's a pearl blush. Oh, don't think I want a pearl. No, I didn't read that, did I? So let's replace it with some, let's bring in some magenta. I think magenta will do well with this. So I think now I'm going to bring in some magenta. I'm going to do the odd little scrapes of magenta, and I'm talking very little scrapes of magenta. I don't want magenta to be the main player. I'm putting the magenta on so that it'll be almost a background for the pink when it comes in. It will give an interesting reference point in the background, should we say. I do have comments asking me, why do I always start in the top left corner and why do I only do straight and horizontal lines? Let's just call it my style, shall we? It's what fits with my creative brain, and my creative brain is wired in straights and straights, lines, horizontals and verticals, and I get the best results when I stick to that format. So for me, that's just the way it is, but it isn't a rule. It's never going to be a hard and fast rule. It just is what it is. Right, I'm going to take that bit off there. I am, however, going to leave that little piece of paint there because I might come in and visit that in a minute. So, right. So, I'm going to bring in a bit of the pink now. Now, I think I'm going to utilise one of my favourites, and you all know what it is. So, yeah, you can shout at the screen now going, Ceri's going to reach for bubble wrap. Yes, Ceri's going to reach for bubble wrap. I have a different sort of bubble wrap today, though. This is quite big bubbles, and I think this could do with some dominant stuff in the background. So I'm just going to smear that paint around the ceramic tile. And this, I may have forgotten to mention, guys, this is just a ceramic tile from my hardware store. It was in the clearance aisle, and I went, I'm going to have that, because it has replaced now for me a paint palette. I want a bit more of that over there. Right, and a little bit down here. There's any residual on it. There is. Right. Now I'm pressing down the second time, not so much to put more paint on, but to actually break up those shapes and lift off any excess paint. I'm not trying to line it up, my dear. I'm just using it as a visual texture. Okay, liking where this is going. Right, let's see if I can scrape this paint into not a pile, but an area, should we say. That's the first time I'm getting really painty fingers. What does arise there? So I gave up trying to be neat and tidy and not covered in paint as an artist years ago, because no matter what I do, I'm going to get covered in paint as an artist. So, and I think, you know, it's kind of your badge of honour, really, isn't it? I mean, I don't think I've got much clothing that doesn't have a patch of paint somewhere, or a pair of track pants with something tipped down one leg because I happened to open a bottle and it's exploded on me. I don't tend to wear aprons, so guess what? I tend to wipe my hand down the side of my jeans. Yeah, I know, don't go there, not good working practices, but all the same, they're a working practice. Right, I'm liking that so far. I know I need to lighten it up at some point, but what I'm seeing on here is actually really appealing to me. I think looking at this colour here, I want to bring in some of this metallic copper, what do they call it, sheen. Now I know this is near on darn it transparent. It's not a very thick consistency at all. It's just, and it does tend to separate out a bit, which I find quite annoying. So to the point where I can't use that bit because I know it's separated out. And I don't know why it separates out from its carrying medium so easily. I mean, I've already shaken these up, and if I was to use logic thinking about this, it's because it's a sheen, therefore there's less particles in it than there would be with a paint. See, it's a bit better now. So, right, I'm going to come in, I'm going to bring in a sponge, and I'm going to sponge some of these areas with this gold, this copper, sorry, just to give places where it's going to catch the light, because I'm going over some of these camel coloured areas. I know that it's got a good background behind it to show up. I'm also concentrating on taking out some of the straight lines I created when I actually use my credit card. Not that they're objectionable, it's just sometimes I find they distract the eye, but not to the point where I wouldn't like the piece when it's finished. So there you go. I just didn't want too much on there, but I'm liking where that's going so far. In a few minutes I am going to have to stop the video, obviously, to dry this off, because when I start working with stencils and upper layers, we have to respect there's quite a bit of paint on here already. Okay, now I haven't reached for white anywhere yet, and I'm wondering whether I should reach for some white now, just to give it a bit of a background for what's going to go on top. And I think I'm going to use white on the same sponge that I've just used, and just to give it, I'm going to use this, and it'll pick up some of the gold colour as well, just to add areas that are going to be lighter, because you're not going to get good contrast in this unless there's something to be contrasting with. And all of the time I'm just creating a background, I'm just creating a base. I do very often get questions, and I've heard other people hear this as well, questions, and I know my friend Gail Augustinelli has had this question umpteen times about when she does collage. And the question is, why do you bother putting stuff down if you're only going to cover it up? To be honest, you don't know you're going to cover it up when you first put it down. Secondly, it's part of the process. It's part of looking at a design and going, okay, that was a good decision, but the piece itself has changed, and therefore I'm going to cover it up. It may make more sense aesthetically to see something else in that position than the piece that's already there. And as an artist, you've got the right. It's your piece of art. Go for it. Do whatever you want. I mean, the journey is important to me, because everything I do, everything I apply, every stage I go through is a learning experience. It's part of the journey. Sometimes I enjoy the fact that the final piece is phenomenal. Well, actually, not think I enjoy. I do really enjoy when I make something really good. However, if I get to the end and something isn't really good, I'll then look back and learn a lot more from the lessons I've gleaned while doing it. Like, why didn't it work? Should I have used this colour? And you've seen by my videos, yeah, things do go wrong, and I do leave them in, and I do try to rectify them on screen. Okay, I'm liking where that is. I still got the bits in the background. We haven't actually got this colour and this colour in here, but I do have pinks in there, and I do have browns in there. So let's just give you a little bit of a look. I know some of you have said, could I zoom the camera in? Actually, the way my camera is set up, no, I can't zoom my camera in. Not currently anyway. However, I can bring the work up to you. So hopefully this will help. Right, we're going to stop the video for 2 seconds for you, about 5 minutes for me. Going to hit this sucker with a hairdryer. Then I'm going to come in and we're going to start playing around with the stencils I pulled out that I think I'd like to use on this, just to get this rocking and rolling, and I feel there's going to be turquoise or teal in my future here as well. So bear with me, back in 2 seconds, guys. I wanted to come in now with a little something in the background, and when I was looking over there for turquoise, because I know I want to put turquoise in, I noticed I have a pink in my chalk paints. Now, why do I shake a tube of chalk paint? Because not a bottle, because I find that it does separate out a bit. And heck, I found this is a better way to do it. So I'm going to put chalk paint on in white. What am I talking about? In pink. That's because chalk paint's white. It's not white, it's pink, and it's blue, and it's green. It's whatever colour. And I'm going to use one of the stencils from PM Artist Studios. Studio, not studio. Come out there. And it's called Cape Rocks. And as you can see, I'm absolutely certain it comes in different sizes. But I wanted to add some of this mottled effect onto this background. I want to try and focus where I've got the darker pink areas, because I don't want the darker pink areas to be dominant. So I'm just going to layer this across, pull out some of this. It's all about the visual texture. Now, another thing I'm going to do while I'm doing this is, because I'm going to use a sponge, and anyone who knows me knows I literally just get household sponges, baby sponges, any sponges I get my hands on, car wash sponges from my dollar store, pound store, and I cut them into squares, and then I use them. If I'm doing a big project with lots of these, I'll throw them into a bowl of water and wash them. If I'm using one, by the end of doing the video, it's probably dirty sponge anyway, and I might just throw it. So I'm just going to dab it in, dab off the excess, and work my way over areas of this. And then what I'm going to periodically do is I'm going to touch into that magenta colour that we had before, and then just keep on going. And what this will do, it will blend in with what's already on there. So I always keep revisiting the lighter colour, because the lighter colour is what I'm looking for. That it's not baby pink, but that pinkish look. But then by periodically jumping back and forth to other colours, you'll find that you'll get nice shading throughout it. Let's just take a look at this in a second. I might be able to show you exactly what I mean. Okay, so see, it's really subtle in the background, but if you look at the individual areas, you've got darker and paler patches in it. So I also try to use different areas of stencils and masks so I don't inadvertently repeat the pattern. So here's Cape Rocks. I do think there's more than one stencil and mask in PM Studios catalogue that looks similar to this, and the reason they've done that is because sometimes you're looking for a style and you don't know it until you see it, and they like the fact that they can give you options, and that's another reason I like it too, because it means that I don't always use the same one, and that's fabulous. And in fact, if you're looking for this sort of style, if you're on their website looking for shopping for stencils like this, I actually have one on there that I designed called Broken Bark. So let's put that along the bottom, that'd be interesting. Broken Bark, so that's another one that's a little more elongated in its design than this, so you've got more and more options every time you look at it. So there you go, let's get this on there. So as you can see, it's in the background, and this is where we're at, is in the background. Now soon we're going to start looking at the foreground, because we're at that point in this design. I don't want the design to go absolutely crazy on me. I'm happy with where we're at. I'm liking what we've got here, but I also know that eventually we're going to be dealing with, I might do a little bit by there actually, just using whatever is on the stencil itself, because then that will give a real fine ghosted look to it. So yes, I don't want to make this far too complex, because I know what I'm planning to do over the top of this. There you go, let's put that one by. I'm just sitting on top of its pocket protector, because this is plastic and this got paint on it. It won't stick to it, so I'm happy about that. Right, I'm going to keep this sponge to one side. So as you can see, I've added patches to this now, and I think we're getting to the point where I said I want to start adding things like turquoise to it. I need to start thinking about adding this colour to it, because we've definitely used pink, and I'm happy with the fact that we've used pink. I'm wondering whether it's going to be too wet to do what I want. Okay guys, let's take a 2-second break. I just want to hit this with a hairdryer and then I'll be back. So just because I don't want to assume everyone understands why I'm doing certain things, I just wanted to explain the reason I need this to be dry is because if I lay a stencil over wet or slightly wet paint, when I lift the stencil up, I could inadvertently rip the wet paint back off the surface of the paper, and then I cause myself a problem. So just for a matter of a couple of seconds, I can cure that before I've even done it. Right, I wanted to add some sort of turquoise to this. And there was a turquoise I was looking at. I'm looking for something like that, although I've got one, I think it's this one. This is Frosted Pearl. I didn't want a frosty colour. That might work. I kind of wanted this colour, but just add white to it, Griffiths. Good grief. How obvious was that? Were you all shouting at me? Were you all going, Ceri, just add some white to it? So I think what we'll do is we'll use that blending technique that I used with the pink, and I'll use this colour. What was this colour called? Oh, turquoise. There you go, by Arteza. I know it's an opaque. I know that's opaque, so it's going to cover up what's in the background. And I'm going to bring in some white to play alongside. That's a mess, isn't it? I don't know what it is about this one tube of paint. Not all of the Piebo or however you pronounce it actually do that, but this, for some reason, my white does. So I've got kind of equal portions of white and the turquoise. I obviously need a new bit of sponge. I'm going to go for quite a small area on this, because the stencil I'm using is this one. Now I've had this one so it looks up better. How do I do that? Okay, I picked this one up on eBay, I believe it was. I've used it a few times. The trouble is, when I bought this one and I started using it, it just dominated, so I tended not to use it too often. However, I do like to use it as something that will give me bits of detail, and that's what I'm planning to do. So I'm going to pick up the turquoise, add a little bit of white to it, and I'm going to come in and see whether I can lift out this sweeping piece of detail here without going underneath the stencil. Now the trick to that is, don't add too much paint to your sponge. I've got a feeling I might have added too much paint to my sponge. It's easier to build up layers than it is to go in with a heavy load on your sponge, and then what happens is it goes under the stencil, and before you know it, you've got blodges everywhere. Actually, that's not bad. I like that. I think that's a good choice of colour. Now, because there's so many areas on this stencil I can utilise, I'm going to utilise them. So let's pop. I'm going to use that central, I would call it a central rose, and that's just referring to the round version of it. I don't know whether this is rose. I think it's because if I look at church windows, the round windows are called the rose window. Well, they are where I come from anyway. So again, not looking for perfect, just looking for elements. But this is a very good example in, see, I love that, that's cute. A very good example in, if you buy a large stencil, look at the elements you can take out of it. Because I'm not using this stencil as a whole. It's a bit obvious I'm not using it as a whole, but there you go, I'm not using it as a whole. But what I am doing is I'm taking different aspects of it out. So effectively it would look like I've used several different stencils, but they'll all be within the same style and the same theme. And that's sort of where I'm going with this. Just make sure I've gone down in the gaps there. See, now this is really adding some really beautiful little bits of detail. I do want to focus in two other areas. So what I'm going to do, as I can see where my paint has been, I can then come in and use other aspects of it Like for me, there is a design just by there. I might pull that one in. I don't want to be avoiding the center, and I don't need it to be perfect. Now I'm going to use a little bit more white with this version. Just come in. So yes, when you buy a bigger stencil or a bigger mask, don't think, oh, the stencil's too big for what I'm using it for. Look at the elements within it, guys. I very often will come in and not use the entire design. I'm loving that. I'm really loving that. Let's see if I can add add one of those little bits of detail. I might do it in white, or as close to white as I can get with the dirty sponge. I'm glad. Oh, that's one of those things that you look into a design and you find, and that's one of the pleasures of using stencils and masks for me. I'm going to see if I can just take out that little bit in the middle. I'll pop it in there, and I'm going to do this in almost white as well. I like doing layers because it forces you to look into a design. See, that's lovely. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You know I've got to put a 7th one in. I think I'm going to take something down here, and I might do the same thing again, but just do half of the design. Am I in shot? Hopefully I'm in shot. And again, sticking with the white so that I don't make this whole spread pink. Yeah, guess what? Biscuit and the Postman again. I should give Biscuit to the postman. No, I would never give Biscuit away. So, right. I think that's okay. I think what's coming next will change the whole character of this. But I need to think for a second. Right, this is going to go by because it needs to dry. Okay. My gut feeling is now I need to come in again with a pale colour to just push this back. And I talk very often about push and pull. And if you've not seen a previous video, what I mean is every lighter layer that I put on over a darker layer, or actually any layer I put on top, will push the layers behind it further into the design. Then when I add a contrasting or an element on top, it will pull that to the surface. Okay, here's an example. So this here is at the forefront and it's pushed back everything behind it. So that's what I mean about the push and pull. And all I'm doing is thinking about where am I going to create areas to the contrast of the final design, which I'm going to use elements of this as the final design because I don't want this to be too dominant. But if I use it on here, this is small enough elements, I think it'll work. I think I want to put some white in there. Let's use some white chalk. Now, I tend to like chalk paint. I bought a pack of, I think, 5 colours of chalk paint a while ago, and it took me the longest time to start using them because I just wasn't sure what to do with chalk paint. I think I must have bought them when they were on sale or something. Why does that feel like that hasn't gone in properly? I don't need this leaking. And the reason I like using the chalk paint is, firstly, it's completely opaque. Secondly, it's got that chalky finish to it. I mean, there's no other way to say that. It's just a chalky finish. And I like that. It's just a very subtle texture, but I like it. Right, I'm going to pinch my sponge so I've got a rounded sort of area here. And then I'm going to do the dab on, dab off. And I'm going to come over. Now, even though it's an opaque, if you add a little bit, you'll still be able to see the design through it. So the guideline you find on paints is a guideline purely in the fact that, yes, it's marked as an opaque, but it depends on how you use it as to whether it's truly an opaque. Like you can take an opaque, you could water it down so it's a wash, and then that wash would no longer be opaque. Equally, you can buy a transparent or semi-transparent, and if you put it on thick enough or you build up the layers, guess what? It'll become almost opaque. So I just like the fact that I can play around with stuff like this. Now, just taking this in, giving myself... It's almost like I'm adding fog or ice or frosting. Sorry, there's me in my cake lingo again, isn't it? So a little bit more of that, just to give delicate. See, by here, this is too dark for me. Well, it's too dark for this design, let's put it that way. But just by surrounding it with that, I've made that totally delicate. Now, I'm at the point where once I do the next stage, I would say this is going to be finished. I mean, famous last words, of course, because goodness knows I've said I'm finished several times on other videos and then kept going for another 20 minutes. All right. So we still have pink visible. I'm liking that. That's nice and delicate. That's lovely. I might join up some of these areas just so that they don't look like patches. And I've got hardly anything on this sponge, guys. I'm just literally working it around. Where did that come from? Oh, that blob came from my fingertip. I didn't know I dipped it in the paint. Right, I think I don't want to lose the pink on here, so I've got a feeling I might just add a little touch more pink before I do the final colour. And I'm wondering what I'll use to put it on there. I don't want dominant. I want delicate. What have I got that's delicate? I don't want to do bubble wrap because I always do bubble wrap. Well, I always do lots of things, but I don't fancy bubble wrap on this one. And if I'm going to come in with pink, I think it's going to have to be a strong pink or I'm going to lose things. Let's use this. I've used this before loads of times, and you can see by the paint on it. This is just a bit of plastic mesh I picked up in my local Hobbycraft or Hobby Lobby, whichever store you're in, or Michael's or Joann's. I think it's for almost doing like cross stitch in wool or rug making or something. I find it useful. It does come in shapes too, but I just bought the big old piece. I'm going to use that. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in that magenta that I had, if I can find it. Permanent magenta, and I think I'm just going to put some little patches of that grid work in here, just that little tiny bit of mesh. Come on, out you come. Again, not wanting it to be dominant. Well, I don't want it to be overpowering. That's wrong of me to say. I don't want it to be dominant. I just don't want it to be overpowering. Right, I'm slightly out of shot here, but I can't do anything about that currently because if I move this up, everything goes out of whack. I'm just going to take my mesh, put it in there, move it around slightly, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to press it on here. Now I'm trying to make sure that I don't go on angles because I think it would be distracting if things weren't up and down at this point. Okay, I'm trying not to be too predictable with this. And also need to remember when enough is enough. I think I'd like just a little bit along there, and we're talking an edge. And there was one more patch I saw an edge. I want an edge across here as well. I've got a bit in the middle, but that's fine because that's going to get covered up in a second or two by another piece. Right, let's put this by. So actually let's give it a little bit of a wipe because this is one of those things that the detail is quite fine, and if I don't clean it, eventually these holes are all going to heal up. So let's take a bit of a closer look at this. I'm liking this where it is. If it was up to me, I probably wouldn't be doing anything else to this. But I want to use, well, not want to, I've got to use this, and I want to use this. And I think we're okay, right? How am I going to do this? I'm going to turn this thing around, this ceramic tile. Hopefully it means I won't put my elbow in it or something. Let's get that out of the way. Let's just give that a wipe. sorry, I'm having one of those days where I'm just, sometimes you have a day when you're just not connected, and today I'm having a thought process thing, so just give my hands a bit of a wipe up. Okay, now I want to come in here and I want to add patches of this, and my thinking is I want this to be almost like Moroccan tile-ish, if that's such a word. So I'm going to have to make sure that I line things up. Now this stencil, luckily enough, is a 6-inch square, so I can actually utilize the corners, but I want to make sure I turn it round as I use it. This is this Van Dyke Brown, which in my opinion is really close to black. And this should really make this spring off the page. Now I'm going to use, I need one that's got a relatively, I want something that's got a reasonably small square. Actually, there you go. That one's got reasonably a small end to it, because I'm going to have to get into all the little nooks and crannies. Sorry if my arm was across. I think I just put my arm across there. So, and I'm not going to fill in every single one of these. I'm literally dabbing off a huge amount, and I'm going to come in and build up this Van Dyke Brown. And I think I'm going to do a couple of each time I put this down of the design, but I'm going to try and keep it so that I don't repeat the same pattern too often. This is going to look reasonably structured, and that's okay with me. So let's see if I've done that correctly. Come on. There you go, that's what I'm talking about. So I can do that now. I can't pick it up, come on. I know it was that way. I'm going to turn it this way and put it up here. And for me, it's quite important that I'm keeping things squared. Now, I did that one and that one on the last one. That's the relationship I was talking about. So I'm going to come in and do the middle one here, so that I'm trying not to duplicate that arrangement. And I don't mind two next to each other. That will be interesting as well. I don't want to do the diamond one. For some reason, the diamond one isn't working for me. And I like diamonds. I mean, if you're on the PM Artist Studio website looking at designs, I actually have one there. I believe it comes in 3 different sizes, called Hopeless Harlequin. And that again is diamonds. And it's diamonds, and they're breaking up and cascading, which I love. So let's take that out of... Why can't I pick stuff up today, guys? Okay, see, we're getting there with that. Right, I'm now going to come partially down on this side. I was going to do all 4 corners, but I think that would be a mistake. Right, so I did that, I turned that. I'm going to turn this again. And I think I'm going to come over here. Now, I do know I want to put one in the middle at some point. And I think I want this one here. So as you can see, I'm trying to utilize each of the squares on this. And I do like tiles. I mean, this like Moroccan tile thing. I think in the future I possibly need to design one of these for myself, because I like using tiles. Let's lift that up a second. Oh, good grief, Griffiths, come on. Never cut your nails before you start filming. Right, I think I want to put this one in here before I put something up there in there. And I quite like the complexity of this one. So what I'm going to do, sorry, I just need to move this up and line it up. I want to line it up with this tile, because I know that tile is lined up with the edge. So I've got my horizontals and verticals working for me. Right, let's take a little bit more brown. I like this one because it's really detailed. Yes, would you guys like me to design some tiles a bit like this? Because I can do it. I just need I need to know people want it, basically, before I start doing it. Oh, that's nice. I like the fact that it's just slightly off center. Right, I know that I need some around here. I quite like the fact there were two. I might come in, give this one more turn. Which ones haven't I done? I might put this one down here. Now, I'm not going to be at the point where I'm going, I've got an odd number of these, I've got an even number of those. At this point, no. At this point, it's a case of what's aesthetically pleasing to my eye. Which I think most art should be. The creator has the right to decide what's right and what's wrong. No one should be able to judge your work other than you. Unless, of course, you put into the public eye, then you are going to get criticised. You are going to get judgment calls on your work. Right, and that's quite good, because if I use this one up here, then I've managed to use all of them bar the diamond one, which was the one I didn't want to use. So yes, if you enter a competition or you exhibit your work, through experience, I will tell you, you need to grow a bit of a thick skin, because everyone feels they have... Did I just hit you with my head again? Everyone feels they have the right to have an opinion, and they do, but they don't always package it in the right way when they give it. So unfortunately, that's the way of the world. So I try to always be constructive and supportive in my criticism of anything if I'm asked for it. I'm liking that. I think that might just be done. I don't want to add any more of these. That's completely no-no. I don't want to add any more of the brown. I am looking at these little areas, wondering whether I need to. And I think actually I need to say no. I think we're done. I really do. I mean, the brief was Dyke Brown. That's pretty much there. And pink. I've definitely got pink on the page. I added the turquoise because I think that was the right thing to do. I think we're done. I'm going to call that one. I'm going to say we're done and dusted. So let me just lift it up so you can have a really close look at it. I've always liked pink and turquoise together anyway. And usually I add terracotta to it. I've never thought to use something that dark as a Van Dyke. I think I'm loving that. Okay, well, thanks very much, Paola, for that challenge. If there is anyone out there who wants to offer myself or any other artist a colour combination challenge, just put it into my comments. I always read and answer every single comment, even if it's just a heart or a thank you or you're welcome. If you have a question, I try to answer it as fully as I can. If I've used inspiration from someone else or can direct you to someone else who will know the question, I will always do that as well, if it's within my capabilities of doing it. All I would ask is please don't expect instant answers. With close to 58,000 subscribers, you can only imagine the amount of comments I answer daily. So, and I love it, and thank you, and please keep them coming. I love the fact that you're supporting me and enabling me and empowering me to be able to do what I love, which is to create. So enough of that. I think this has turned out fantastic. I really, really love this. I bet when this hits the internet, it's going to go a bit nuts on me. And it's time to say goodbye. So I'm Ceri the Crafter. That's Ceri the Crafter. Until next time. Bye-bye, guys.